Hey there guys, this is Slamzeron, aka YouTube's Tasuke, and I've got a special treat for you guys. The Tales of Berseria demo came out on the PSN store a while ago, and I've played a fair amount of it, so I figured I should give my general thoughts on it, but also I'm going to talk about all the latest news that has come from the game for the past 3 or 4 months. I guess few was probably a better word to go with. And go into a little bit of some predictions about the game, because it's actually coming out really soon. In fact, this is going to go up on a Thursday. I'm recording it at 2 a.m. on Wednesday night, technically Wednesday morning, depending on how you look at things. But the game is actually going to be coming out the very next Thursday after this one goes up. So it's literally a week away in Japan. You know, in North America, it was announced for coming out in the first quarter of 2017, but I'm going to get to that later on. I've got a bunch of stuff that I'm going to want to talk about here, and I'll have notes and links for everything in the description for those who want to follow along. This is almost kind of like a video podcast when you think about it, though it's not really going to be, I'm obviously not recording it as such, for one thing, and it's not being structured as such, but there will be quote-unquote show notes, as I use, for talking about all the articles and links and whatnot for the podcast. And before I get started into the demo, which is the first thing I'm going to talk about in this little discussion thingy, I do want to note that this will probably be the last Tales of Berseria video I do until the Final Thought video, where I've actually played through the entire game and experienced everything in English. Because, one, like I said, the game is literally coming out a week from today, so, you know, in terms of, like, news, unless there's, like, something controversial or some sort of delay of the English version or an announcement of the collector's edition, not saying I'm going to talk about any of those in videos or, like, make videos for them, but basically what I'm trying to say is there's not going to really be too much major news. In fact, everything going forward is probably going to be spoilers. Depending on how fast those spoilers drop, I don't know. But I do want to try to avoid spoilers as much as I can, unless it's like secret character stuff, unless it's going to like ruin my theories, or it's going to strengthen my theories. But then if I know about that secret character, it's going to kind of ruin the rest of the story for me. But yeah, basically at this point, there's not really going to be anything else to really talk about news-wise going forward, since the game is coming out next Thursday, and there's probably not going to be too many articles or like news postings about anything new coming from it, unless it's like DLC or something. You know, basically every news going forward is going to be kind of small. It won't really matter, and it was because of that, because we've actually had some smaller news bits that have come up in the past few months that would be of the same caliber as any sort of like news that comes after this eventual release this Thursday, and as well as the release of the English version as well. And so because of that, I didn't make any like pre-E3 or during E3 or even post-E3 videos, and because they were all kind of small and not really that major, I chose not to do its own video for E3. But because it was rather larger than any other like smaller sort of news bit on something else I could have covered, I felt like I shouldn't include it in my general E3 video. It was basically sort of like in between, like in a middle sort of area, and I feel like the demo kind of helps me have something else to talk about as well. Plus, it's a really kind of a good way to talk about the game before it comes out. It's almost like an appetizer, and for those wondering, there will be show notes in this for those who want to follow everything. I know I'm using the show notes term like this is a podcast. It is kind of like a podcast when you think about it, but there will be links in the description for those who want to try to like read up on everything I'm saying and get more information, because I'm not going to be able to like paraphrase everything. I do have the links open with me. I'm actually recording this and the gameplay footage separately, as you can probably imagine. So yeah, why don't we go into the demo? So firstly, just a little refresher for those of you who didn't know, with the gameplay, what they were doing with this game was that, one, free run was just going to be innately enabled in a sense. Like basically you're going to be able to free run throughout the entire game, and you can't really turn it off. And you'll also be able to control the camera on its own. And not only that, but now your arts, they're not going to be on X or circle depending on what region you're playing this game in. They're not just going to be on those two. They're actually going to be on square and triangle as well. And I know a lot of people, including myself, were a little concerned about that. And it was going to kind of follow the Graces or Zestiria battle system where, like, you do all your arts in, like, a little chain combo thing. But now in this game, you can actually put in the arts that you want, which is kind of interesting. And so I was actually kind of curious about how everything worked. I felt like I needed to actually play the game in order to really get a good handle on it. So I was actually really hoping and praying for a demo because, one, I just wanted to play the game. And two, I wanted to sort of see what everything was all about. Because, I mean, I wanted to kind of get into their head a little bit, there being Namco Bandai Entertainment's head, and sort of figure out, you know, how is it exactly going to play, and, like, how is it going to work. And thankfully, with this demo, I feel like I have a much better idea of how this game's going to play. I actually kind of like it, to be honest. I was a little surprised. I was expecting it to be a little clunkier than it ended up being. It was actually pretty fun, and it really fluid, and it worked well, and I'm actually really pleased with it. I feel like it's actually going to help the game be a bit easier as well. Though, on that note of the ease of the game, I do want to note one thing that I was actually kind of wondering. And for the sake of this gameplay footage, as you'll see, I didn't give Velvet any arts in her X slot. And the reason why I did that was because if you don't have any arts, and I assume any of your slots, in the demo, they only let you, like, remove everything in the X slot. I don't know if it's just for the demo or if it's for the entire game. But you start off with no arts in your X slot, and it just rolls through the rest of your arts. In fact, I think it makes up like a little combo. I think it changes for each battle as well. I'm not entirely sure. But basically, it seems to me like if you don't have any arts in any of your button slots, the game will just basically make a combo for you. And obviously, it's going to make a combo that works. It's not going to make a combo that doesn't chain well. Or at least in my experiences, the combos that it did give me worked well. And because of that, I feel like this game is having sort of a weird surrogate easy mode. I imagine the game probably will have a difficulty setting, and it'll probably have easy. The Tales games have had an easy setting for a while now, since really Rebirth, if we're getting technical. And I don't know if they dumbed down the difficulty for the English version, or even if at one point they did dumb them down. I don't know if they still dumb them down. I'm going to take a wild guess and say no, considering Exilia 2 and Zestiria were pretty hard. But I feel like because of the no arts, basically make a combo for you kind of thing, also assuming if this will work with all of the buttons, not just X. Like, if it was just X, then I'd be like, okay, fair enough. Maybe they want to still have it to where X is kind of like your regular attack. Actually, they have an art that, even though I couldn't read katakana, I could tell that it was an art where, depending on what button you put it on, it would do a different attack. And I think they're trying to, what's the word? Simulate sort of either like a basic attack combo, or the kind of like different attacks you could do by pressing up in the attack button, or down in the attack button, or forward in the attack button. In the previous Tales games, back in the attack button, which we haven't seen in a long time, actually. But I feel like because of all that, and also assuming the things that I've said, this game may have an extra easy mode for those who don't really want to put all the time and effort into making their own little combo. That isn't to say that this would be really taxing on someone, though. Like, and I know for me, like, you know, if I don't have to fucking make a combo, I won't. I did have a little bit of fun sort of making my combos, but I feel like while you're trying to figure out what combos work, unless you don't care about, like, stuff chaining. And again, I feel like a lot of the attacks are meant to kind of chain together. And you can do, like, XX triangle or square circle triangle X. Like, you can mix up stuff. So, like, you also have to take into account, like, okay, well, if I do this and then press this button in the combo, is it going to work well? It seems like everything does actually chain well. Not even just from a standpoint of everything being able to, like, link together, You know how like in from Exilia, everything was basically an arcane art, and you could chain every attack together. Here but it wouldn't necessarily like connect very well. Here it feels like everything does connect well, or at least from my perspective it does. Again, that's just my basic perspective on just briefly studying the game. I've only played enough of it to really digest as much as I can without getting too bored of it. As if I could even get bored of a Tales game. There's no way I'm going to get bored with this. This actually kind of makes me think of like Dynasty Warriors or another action game a little bit. I know some of us on the podcast were a little concerned of this game going hack and slash. I think I may have even talked about it in the first Berseria video that I did, but I feel like with this battle system, my fears have been quelled. I think it's going to be very fun. Might be a little bit easy. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I still feel like the game will challenge me. And I will say this, controlling the camera, having to manually control the camera is a bit of a pain because I'm not used to it for the Tales game. Like for any other game like Dynasty Warriors or Kingdom Hearts or Dark Souls or anything like that, like I'm more used to doing the camera and whatnot. Whereas in this game, because there doesn't seem to be any sort of auto lock-on thing, that's actually something they should maybe add. I think that would actually be kind of cool, and it would probably quell some people who don't like or who don't like having to like constantly move the camera around. And I can sort of see that. I don't know if I necessarily stand by that, but I do think it would be kind of a pain to like have to like move the camera after you're done with your combo just because you've killed an enemy and now everyone's going like right behind you or something. And also doing R1 as the guard, that took a little bit of getting used to. Not just because it is a little awkward for Tales, at least, because I'm used to it being square. There have been some times, which you might even see when I record the gameplay, because I'm actually recording this commentary part first, so I haven't actually recorded the specific session, so who knows? Maybe I'll actually be a pro master at pressing R1 to guard, or I'll keep messing up and pressing square and be like, if it's doing like some attack, and then I end up doing a combo, it's like, okay, well, I might as well just finish this combo and waste all my gauge for doing my arts. It's sort of like AC, but it's more of like a visual thing, like those little diamonds that you can kind of see a little bit in the doohickey. But yeah, having R1 as guard proved to be a bit too different for me at first. It took a while to get used to, and I kept forgetting. So hopefully when I record the footage I'll do better, but you know, it's not like there hasn't been a game that has used R1 as guard. Dark Souls for one, Saint Seiya, I think Soldier Soul and Brave Soldiers did it. You know, I know on the podcast we've talked about, you know, R1 not really being a good spot for the guard button. We'll have to see how everything goes when more people have a chance to play the game, be it if they happen to have a PS4 at the time, or if they import the PS3 version just because, or they get the PC version or whatever. Of course, then, well, no, yeah, the game will probably auto-map itself anyway, and if you don't like to, never mind. I don't think that would actually work out pretty well with the system they have in place. I was going to say you could probably remap the game to where square is the guard button, but then again, like, it's going to mess up the stuffs. Unless you want to have your shoulder buttons be your arts, which would be kind of awkward, I think. It's like, you know, that's definitely one way to play the game. I guess I probably should note, for those who don't watch my channel, I do plan on getting the PS4 version, and I'm actually kind of happy that they put the demo on the PS4. I know some people were complaining that there wasn't a PS3 version of the demo. I feel like at this point, the previous console generation, the PS3, the Xbox 360, and definitely the Wii, are pretty much out the door. Developers are thinking about the next generation. At this point, we're going to start seeing more Japanese developers not make PS3 versions of their games, and they're really doing it just because there are still a few people who primarily play PS3, and probably just because they can. But that's neither here or there. I don't want to get video game industry political on you guys. We're talking about Berseria here. But yeah, so I enjoyed the demo. Velvet was pretty fun to play as. I noticed she did a lot more kicking than she did her little arm blade thing, at least from my perspective. but she was still pretty fun to play as, and I think it'll be fun to play as her, and I'll probably stick with her for a while. I also played a little bit as Aizen and Rokuro. I actually kind of like Rokuro's style more than anyone else's. I played as him probably the second most. I might actually end up breaking my rule of only playing as characters that exclusively use swords, or any sort of like pair of swords, be it sword and shield, or two swords, or a sword and a dagger, to play as Rokuro, because he uses two daggers, which honestly I feel like I mean, it's kind of cool. I feel like from the trailers they made it look like he was using either two swords or a sword and a dagger and pulling a Leon, which I kind of prefer. I feel like with the two dagger things, he's like a male Rose from Berseria. I'm like, do we really need that? Why not make him a little different? Granted, he doesn't really play poorly or anything. He's fun to play as. I don't enjoy him as much as Velvet. I feel like Velvet is she's a lot faster than Rokuro, I think, which is kind of surprising given that he's using basically the same weapon type as Rose, and he's a little slower. Again, I would have preferred if he had a sword and a dagger, which I feel like being a samurai would have made more sense for his character. But that's okay. He's definitely a cool looking character, and well, again, we'll have to see if they have any secret characters. I don't know. I'm hoping Oscar, that character Oscar that we've seen a few times, may join the party, or maybe Dial, the lizard guy. That'd be so cool. I would play as Dial. That'd be really cool, and that's almost like a Soul Calibur reference too when you think about it, because of Lizard Man. And I'm wondering if that's what they're going for, a little bit. But yeah, the demo was fun. Other than that, I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. It was fun to play. The music was okay so far, and I also played the story mode a little bit as well. In terms of the skits, since we're talking about gameplay right now, I both like them and kind of dislike them. I like the slideshow thing. I liked it better when you saw all the characters who were in the specific skit. I understand that with this one they can now have more characters in there, and they're doing like the full body thing. And the slideshow thing does make it a little more dynamic, not to mention the skits in general seem to be more dynamic than they've ever been. Also including like shots of characters looking at each other from like the other side of the screen, which I think is actually kind of interesting. Like there was one with like Velvet looking at Magalu on the other side of the screen. I thought, oh, cool. That's pretty baller. But we'll just have to see how everything works out. The game definitely... I'm definitely really looking forward to the game now that I've actually played the game and have been able to experience it myself. The only other things I want to mention about the demo that I noticed was, firstly, the whole Break Soul thing. I mean, it was kind of cool. I don't know if I really like it being the only way to get your BG up. With Velvet in particular, as you see, it's a bit of a pain to kind of get it up, because like every time you do her little hand thing, it only goes up by like a quarter, which I guess is okay, but it still takes a little while. And the one thing that's kind of cool that the Tales series has been doing lately is letting you switch out characters. Though it seems like here in Berseria, it seems like you're meant to do it more often than, and it's meant like they're just sort of like on standby, rather than you like literally pulling them out of the nether, if that makes any sense. I don't really think it's that different, but I just thought it was kind of interesting how they did it. One thing I also noticed when playing the scenario mode, which for some reason the PS4 gameplay recording just blocks it completely out. I guess it makes sense because of spoilers, but still kind of interesting considering a good chunk of it we've actually already seen before. During the while you're exploring the level or like on the world map or whatever, kind of like how in Exilia and whatnot, where characters will talk like in like the bottom left corner. On the PS4 version, at least, their voices came out of the speaker, which I was not expecting. Though thankfully, from what I can tell in the options, you can actually set it to where it'll come out of the TV. You can even set it out set it to come out of both the TV and the controller if you want. If you want to experience more Dragon Quest Heroes, The World Trees Woe and the Blight Below. That's a mouthful. And a little tiny feature that someone pointed out on Facebook that I didn't realize was actually part of the game. I had noticed it, but I didn't realize it. Realized that it was part of the game, and not just like me using a separate PSN account to play the friggin' thing. But the LED light on the PS4 controller when you're playing Berseria, it turns like a dark sort of pink, sort of richer pink or something, and that's kind of cool. The only other thing I can really think of that I have heard and even noticed during playing while trying to record this as well is that there's actually a glitch in the game. Or a glitch. There's actually a glitch in this demo where I don't know what triggers it, but like there's like you'll go into battle, but you'll actually be like on like this stuck on like this piece of architecture, and you won't be able to fight the enemy, and so the only thing you can do is like escape. There'll be a link in the description to a video about it that Abyssal Chronicles shows on it, and it did happen to me, but you know, hopefully they'll fix it at least. And yeah, I definitely look forward to playing it when it comes out, the English version at least, because I don't plan on importing it. I haven't imported a main Tales game in a while. Like I used to do that by default, but now because the Tales series has gotten so big that we are arguably guaranteed almost every single Tales game. Really only Mothership titles, but because of that fact, I feel like I don't have to import anymore, and that's actually kind of nice because I can really enjoy a Tales game in, you know, my preferred language of English. I say prefer, but it's also my native and only language. Like, I took Spanish in high school and college, but I can't remember anything. Though, to shift over to the news, there was this interview with, I think, a community manager named Pearl Lai on DualShockers, where she said that for the first time in the English version, she didn't specify North American or European. I assume European because, honestly, in terms of social media and the online presence of the Tales series, it's been very, very almost exclusively European focused. And so I think she may have been talking about the European, but they're actually going to be including Brazilian Portuguese as a foreign language option for the text and the what I assume is the European version, because I think they've included French, German, and they started Spanish, and I think Exilia, I believe, but they're also going to be including Brazilian Portuguese, so that's cool. And who knows, maybe they'll include it in the... I don't think they'd include it in the English version, because the Tales series in North America, as far as I understand, there aren't too many foreign language players, to my knowledge. I don't know. I'm only speaking from my experience. A lot of the foreign language Tales fans that I know are from foreign countries, so they tend to get the European version if they don't already import. And Pearl also noted, or rather hinted, at some special or collector's edition that may be coming. So that's cool. I mean, they were probably going to do it anyway, and I imagine they may include the Kotobukiya figure of Velvet that's been shown. I'll have a link in the description to everything that I'm talking about, because I actually pulled up a lot of notes. In fact, I have it open. I might actually take a look at the link of the figure itself. I don't think it's been announced. According to the Abyssal Chronicles article, the prototype was shown at Wonderfest 2016 summer. We don't have a release date. As far as I know, I'm looking at it and I don't actually see a release date, unfortunately. They say the estimated release is 2017, according to Abyssal Chronicles. So as far as we know, it may or may not make it in time for the collector's edition of the English version. That being said, sort of a bit of opinion piece, but Abyssal Chronicles, or at least Abby, I guess I should say, or whoever wrote the post, noted that a lot of the collector's editions of previous Tales games have been sort of repackaged versions of, I don't remember what online retailer, but a certain retailer. So it's possible we may get one of those, which included like the QB Chata figures, which were like the tiny ones, which I think would work better because I don't really have a place to put Big Velvet. I want Big Velvet, but I need Little Velvet so that I can actually put her somewhere. And it'll be cool to see what else they include. I'm definitely going to pick it up. Like, I mean, the only reason why I didn't get the Zestiria one, which I'm still thinking about getting, because I want that fucking movie. I wanted the movie. That's all I wanted, and they didn't give it to us. We had to fucking pay more. And we still have to pay a lot, even though it's a lot cheaper. Sorry. This is about Berseria, not Zestiria. But, it'll be interesting to see what else is included in the collector's edition, assuming they do one, which they will do. And like I started saying, but rudely interrupted myself before, the only reason why I didn't get the Zestiria one was because I got the PS3 version, and I wanted to get the PS3 version, and I felt like that this was a PS3 game. This wasn't Zestiria. I still to this day do not think is a PS4 game. I probably will get the PS4 version just on the grounds that Japan has it now. Berseria, very clearly PS4 game, in my opinion. So that's definitely a nice little factoid. And in terms of the developers, one thing that I think is interesting to note, I know that a lot of people have been people keep saying take this with a grain of salt. I don't know what to think of it, honestly, but basically Hideo Baba's not the producer of this particular game. It's instead a man named Yasuhiro Fukaya, who is being the producer of the game. From what we know, Hideo Baba is still the general producer of the Tales series. It's just that Fukaya is the producer of Berseria, which, even though Hideo Baba is still part of the Tales series and the development, it's still a little weird that he's not the producer of this game. But Fukaya seems to... it'll be interesting to see what Fukaya brings to the table, because obviously he's a different man, and from what I've gathered, the producers have a little bit of a say in things. Very little, I imagine. But it'll be interesting to see how this game turns up. Some people have been saying that, gameplay. There was even like the Famitsu score of this game, which was actually pretty high, which I'll link as well. Which they say the story's good, but some of the negatives included like the camera was tough to get used to, and graphically the game doesn't really take advantage of the PS4, which I think makes sense because this game was developed as a PS3 game and seems to have moved, or it was being developed as a PS3 game because it's not out yet. At least as of when this video actually goes up, it's not out yet. If you're watching this next Thursday, then yes, the game is out. But if you're watching it before then, no, the game's not out. I guess technically Wednesday because Japan's a day ahead, depending on what time it is. But based on everything that we've heard so far, it seems like Fukaya and Namco Bandai Entertainment are being a little more cautious with, definitely very cautious with how information on the game prior to the launch is being released. But they also seem to be playing it safe in terms of this game's battle system. As you'll see in the gameplay footage of the demo, you'll note that even though it does kind of look a little seamless, or at the very least that where the levels, like the battlefield and the actual level you walk around in, are use the same data, the game's not actually seamless. It's not like Zestiria, which is actually kind of interesting. You could maybe chalk that up to it being on the PS4 and it being primarily a PS4 game, and maybe we don't, to do what we want to do and take advantage of the PS4's power, we don't really know how to do that yet by like managing it or whatever. Which I actually don't mind, because I don't care if the game's seamless. I actually would prefer the game not be seamless. just because I feel like that kind of takes away part of what the Tales series is to me. Because to me, the Tales series is a traditional JRPG that has a non-traditional battle system, while also in the realm of the traditional system, if that makes any sense. Which, if you've seen my Tales history video that I did, you'll probably understand. But yeah, it definitely seems like they're trying to be more cautious with everything. Because even the battle system itself, its uniqueness is in that you can now all the face buttons. I say face buttons, but what I mean by that is the X, circle, square, and triangle. They're now put all your arts there. But that's really the only major change besides the camera and the complete activation of free run. I don't know what else to call it. Basically, you can move around the map however you want without like pressing a button to do free run. You're not locked on like one specific line. But even then, like, it still uses like the Graces and Zestiria sort of art chains set up. The only real difference is that you can now put any arts there you want. And depending on how the game is, because I know in recent Tales games, I think they put arts in your... I think they give you like your new arts automatically. I'm not entirely sure there. But the game may automap itself with the arts, which would actually be kind of interesting, and I wouldn't necessarily mind that. I do have some ideas for some cool combos that I tried out in the game as Velvet that I don't show in this gameplay footage, or at least not any that are on purpose. But yeah, I even with that stuff in mind, I think the game will still be at least unique and fun enough to be enjoyed as a good Tales game. Of course, me saying that probably isn't saying too much because I love the series to death. Still working on the Hearts R video, don't worry, that'll come. At any rate, it definitely seems like they're trying to be more cautious than arguably if they need to be, because to me, part of the enjoyment of Zestiria was that it did some different things. Not as much as I would have liked, but it did a fair amount of stuff different. I know it's probably one of the most polarizing games in the series, but I still enjoyed it. And just real quick side note, Burn by Flow, the Japanese theme song, it has been confirmed for the English release, which I'm fucking glad, because that's a really awesome song. It might even be my second favorite Tales opening, under Yume de Arione by Dean. Technically third place of An no Ashita is in second, which honestly it kind of steps in and out. I definitely really like that song too, but that's not about fucking Dean. We're talking about Flow! I'm crazy. But anyway, it's really cool that we're getting the as far as I can tell, the full song, because I know it was Zestiria, they did the song, but it was instrumental. And on the podcast, we talked about sort of maybe the reason why, and it made sense looking back at it. But here, as far as I can tell, there don't seem to be any interesting lyrics or any sort of reason for them not to include the lyrical version of the theme song. I imagine it'll still be in Japanese, but yeah, definitely cool. Some of the other stuff we got in terms of news was like the costumes. Really, the only thing I could really think to talk about before that was the mini games that we maybe have seen. The only one really of note was the card one, because it had Tails characters on it. According to Crystal Abyssal Chronicles, it's called Shout Out Paper Money. Again, all my links will be in the show notes, and if you want the trailers, just Google them. I'm not going to link every single trailer. You're going to have to look that up on your own. I will link the podcast if you guys want to hear more discussion and you want to hear more opinions about things, because we do talk about each new bit of Berseria, or at least all the important stuff, as each piece of information comes out on the podcast, and it's like a group discussion, and it's more fun. It really is. But going back to the costumes, since I imagine you guys are probably going to want to know this anyway, I am a teensy disappointed at the school uniform costumes that were revealed. Primarily Velvet's. I know they're going for the sailor thing, at least for Velvet, Lafayette, and Eleanor. And of course, fucking Magalu has to be the fucking hipster senior. I'm just trying to get into a good college. Like that's probably what they're gonna call it too, because like she's wearing the skirt, the shoes as well, but she's wearing the glasses and the hoodie, and it reminds me so much of fucking Pascal's costume, her school costume from Grace's. And of course, Eleanor has sort of like the winter maiden thing going on, whereas kind of funny, Velvet is actually the only one wearing it, like without any sort of like customization. That usually is how it goes. There's always one character who just wears the uniform straight. In Zestiria, it was Alicia. In Exilia, it was Leia. Though, admittedly, it's not really a trend. I kind of wish it would be, because I kind of like their school uniforms. I think the characters look pretty baller. And I'm only saying baller because I don't want to say sexy. Oops, I said sexy. I will say this about Velvet. It reminds me of Kagome from Inuyasha, which, that's cool. You know, honestly, I might end up going with it anyway, just because it looks good on her. I don't really know. I'm probably going to do what I usually do and give everyone a different costume. And I imagine because, as far as we know, there doesn't seem to be any sort of like character thing. I'll get into like character predictions later on. I really only have one story prediction that if you've listened to the podcast, you already know that my friend Ryo agrees with me anyway. But as far as we know, the females, or even the males for that matter, of certain, or like any certain character, they don't seem to be sharing costumes, is what I'm trying to say. Which in some ways it was cool, in some ways it might not be. I don't know if I'd really want Velvet to be wearing Eleanor's Captain Crunch / really cold winter uniform. Or maybe she just goes to a different school that happens to have the same skirt. I don't fucking know. I'm not going to get into the lore of the school uniform costumes. One thing that's actually kind of cool, though, is that they include different colors. If you look at the article that Abyssal Chronicles did showing the scans, it shows a Velvet and the gang wearing a brown and black uniform, which is kind of cool. But so that's kind of cool, and they're available for all the characters, and they include 3 color variations. And of course, they do an Idolmaster Cinderella Girls one because, you know, why wouldn't they? It's only for Velvet, Eleanor, and Magalu. And that's cool. I watched a little bit of Cinderella Girls. I didn't really get into it, and there's a Maiden Butler one, which that's cool. And there's also a Alice in Wonderland one. That's kind of cool, I suppose, for those who want that. I gotta say, I'm not entirely impressed with Velvet's line of costumes in terms of the fan service. Oh, that's really a stupid thing to say, but you know me. I like my fan service. That being said, Velvet doesn't really strike me as being the kind of character. Like, I was thinking about that. Like, if they're probably going to do school uniform costumes, but would Velvet really wear something kind of cutesy like that? And in all honesty, I think the sailor thing actually fits her very well, because it's not really that cutesy. Despite the fact that she doesn't really seem to customize it, I find that kind of interesting. But obviously the latest one, though, is the Tails one, which is kind of cool. And talking about this before this goes up on the podcast, but you know, they're all kind of cool. And the only one I think is kind of weird is Ruti and Velvet. I don't really know who else they could have picked. I think they were probably going for who matched her the most. I don't think they're going to be or they probably didn't want to disrupt. I don't know why they just wanted to give her fucking Ruti. It's not like they haven't done that before. And it looks fine. It actually looks kind of cool. It almost looks like a early design of her. I'm wondering, like, if it'd be interesting to see what sort of like design stuff they have. I'm probably gonna have Lopset wear the Richard one because he does look kind of cool in it. It's definitely pretty baller, I would say. And the other one that was shown was the which was like the first one to actually show was the beach pirate and ninja ones for some of the characters. I say pirate, but it's also sort of like a Viking samurai kind of thing. Aizen looks pretty cool in a lot of his, like in the butler one, the school uniform one, and the pirate one. They all look pretty baller. I kind of like Velvet's beach one. It looks kind of nice. I don't know if I'd give anyone their beach costume. I might give Velvet hers. I don't know. I don't know what I'm. It's fun. I'm already thinking about like what costume am I going to give everyone. And I will say the samurai / pirate one for Rokuro looks pretty awesome. It looks really cool. So does what's her Magalu. Magalu's looks pretty good. And yeah. And I believe there's some color I can't remember if there are color variations. I don't think there are. Not for these, I don't think. But yeah, they definitely look pretty cool. Now the only other thing I can really think to talk about is story predictions and character predictions. I'll go ahead and say it. As I've said on the podcast, I both think and want Velvet to die. I think she's going to die, and I want her to die, because she seems kind of like that angry, tragic character. And based on the trailer we saw, the latest like full trailer we saw where she got stabbed by Artorias, I think she is likely going to die or be fatally wounded. And there's even like in the third one where they first showed like a fuller version of Burn by Flow. There's that scene of Velvet on the ground, like Lopset picks her hand up and she moves her hand and like lets Lopset hold it, and he's all crying and shit. So I think Velvet may die. I think there's a chance she will die. However, I think there's also a chance for her to come back, because I've thought about it. And there's also the scene where like she's waking up and Lopset is kind of laying on her with his hand like on her collarbone or something, which looked like a very sort of I miss you or I love you kind of hug. I know I'm definitely overanalyzing this, but that's what I fucking do. That's just how I do, boy. That's just how I do, boy. Yeah, I'm kind of weird. But that's my prediction. I think she will die or get fatally wounded. If she dies, she may come back, whether it be it might just be like a short-term thing where we think she's dead, and then she comes back, or maybe they're trying to revive her or something. And I think that would be a good time to replace her with a different character, preferably permanently, and then like when we get Velvet back, we just have this other person back too. We've joked about it being Artorias on the podcast. That'd be really funny. It'd be even funnier if like there's actually an Artorias Dark Souls costume for Artorias, and it changes his entire game. That'd be hilarious. I'm sure I'm not the only fan of video games that's thought that you know, there's Artorias in Tales of Berseria, but there's also Artorias from Dark Souls. Maybe there's a connection. I don't know, but I do think that going back to the main point, that if Velvet is to die, she may stay dead and be replaced, or she may be temporarily replaced with another character, and then she'll come back either by just magic of she survived, or they're trying to revive her or something, and we may get that character and keep them, like Oscar or his sister or something, or maybe Saris, the chick with the red hair and the mask, or Artorias even. Or she'll get fatally wounded and she'll come back, and it's meant to scare us, and we'll get scared and everything. In terms of character deaths, one thing that I really hope they don't do, especially for people who have played Zestiria, is rely on Aizen to be sort of like the character who dies, like the quintessential JRPG death character. Because those who have played Zestiria, we already know what happens to Aizen. He turns into a fucking dragon. Spoilers, and sorry for those who haven't looked at it. But anyway, we already know that that's going to happen to him. And I really hope they don't rely on that. Like, I'd rather that be like a lore piece, like we don't actually know why it happened. Or if we are to learn what happens, it's like something short. And it happens like maybe near the end of the game or something. Hopefully to where it won't disrupt any sort of like post-gameplay. Because I know, with post-game, they'll let you slave over your clear data and they give you all the characters. And story-wise, it takes place like before the ending. But... who knows? So I hope they don't do that. I'm also a little concerned as to how everything's going to connect with Zestiria, because I feel like everything so far has been kind of loose connections and just sort of like, oh, it just takes place in the same world. And I think that's kind of what they're going for. But if they want it to connect with Zestiria and not just be a prequel that just happens to take place in the same world, like Symphonia and Fantasia, then some other connections would be nice. On the subject of the connections, we already do know, and I'll have a link to this as well for those who just want to read up more about this, but Episode 5 and 6 of Tales of Zestiria the Cross, Episode 5 is already available for Funimation's Elite subscribers and Premium Daisuke people, but those two episodes they focus on Berseria. And, of course, Funimation is doing their broadcast dub. So we'll get to hear an English voice for Velvet and some of the other Berseria characters pretty soon. And so that's making me wonder how they're going to make that work in the game. Like, is it going to be a Sonic X and Sonic Heroes kind of thing where, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, in Sonic X, which came up before Sonic Heroes, Cream was in like the second episode. She got an English voice, and in Sonic Heroes it sounded like her, but it was clearly a different actress. So I don't know if they'll do that, or what they may do, and they've been doing this a little bit for the Tales games from Exilia 2 onward, is get a Funimation voice actor, and probably when they're working on the game, fly them out. Maybe they've already done the English voices for all we know. Or this could be the first all Funimation voiced Tales game, which, with Zestiria, we had a lot of Funimation people, and a lot of the voice actors from the game are returning for Zestiria the Cross, so it's not like Funimation hasn't done non-in-house people before. In fact, they've done non-house people before a lot. Like with, technically Dragon Ball, because a lot of these voice actors are outside of Texas, like I know Sean Schimmel is. He's a New York-ian, I think. But, so, it'll be interesting to see what they do with the voice cast. I do have some speculation on who will voice Velvet. I think it could be someone from Funimation, and depending on who it is, it wouldn't really be that hard, because some Funimation actresses have actually done some non-Funimation stuff before, and non-Texas stuff as well. Before you people out there being like, technically Sentai's also in Texas. Fuck you, I'm not talking about Sentai. I'm talking about Viz and Bang Zoom and other stuff. But that's really all I can talk about. This video has gone on a lot longer than I thought it would. Sorry about that, and sorry that my uploads have been kind of short. Like, I haven't been doing too many uploads lately. I've been having a lot of trouble uploading stuff. I've been trying to upload stuff, and on Firefox, it's all like... I use Firefox, by the way. It's like, we are having trouble sending over the data to the server and shit. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so what I've ended up having to do is go into Google Chrome and go into incognito mode and then sign in there and then upload it. I know it doesn't have anything to do with my internet connection. In fact, I even tried hooking up my computer directly to the internet with an Ethernet cable and turning off wireless, and it still wouldn't work. And I even tried doing like the private window thing. Nothing is working. So besides the Google Chrome thing, so I don't know if anyone else has been having any trouble, but I haven't. Just other stuff has been like taking over my time. But yeah, this video is too fucking long. The sad thing is the Berseria Final Thought video is probably going to be longer, especially considering not only the Zestiria podcast episode was long as fuck, And my final thought video was long as fuck, but again, my video style is very background noise or podcasty like, so I don't expect people to sit there and watch my videos. I guess I'm kind of like Epic Name Bro in that regard. But that's really all I have to say on this game, and I guess you'll figure out what I think about the actual game in its entirety when it comes out in English. Please no spoilers in the comments. You can tell me if someone else joins the party later on. You don't have to tell. I'd rather you not tell me anything, because I have this really strong suspicion that Velvet will die, and I really want that to happen. I'm terrible, but yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I'm not going to disable comments or anything. You can still comment if you want to, but if you do comment, please don't post spoilers. And I'm only saying that for people who have experienced the full game like for people who are watching this after next Thursday and who have are either playing the game or who have played the game. I know gameplay footage is going to be up, but yeah, that pretty much brings this to a close. Thanks for joining me for this really long fucking video, but yeah, it's gonna be good, and we're almost there. I hope you who import the game enjoy it, but yeah, this is Flamesron, aka Tasuke, signing out. See you later.